what is your sense around this team? Obviously, you've got a lot of familiar faces, a handful of new ones as well, but the biggest new face, obviously, is in the head coaching chair. Like, have you been able to even sort of process expectations or anything like that when there is this huge unknown out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think from what the players say and what I've felt around the program is that there hasn't been much of a change.
Okay.
And I think the transition couldn't have gone smoother between Cook and DBK. Yes, there's going to be changes. The offense is going to be a little faster pace. The coaching staff has a little bit different responsibilities under DBK, and that's going to look a little different. But from what the players say and what I feel, like, they're, like, clicking on all cylinders already, and, like, everyone's bought into this program. You rarely see a team that has a coaching change with zero players transfer out.
No turnover.
And these players, there's 17 players on the roster. You could have 18 players now on scholarship with the house settlement and everything. Not all 17 of these players are going to play.
No,
there's going to
not.
be a handful of red shirts. There's going to be people on the bench that might not see, too much time this season, but nobody left.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most incredible thing. And that, to me, shows me that their transition to DBK has been a good one, and she's been well received in the locker room for the stuff that we don't see. And there's obvious leadership in this group to where I think we do know what we're going to get out of them with, the Harper Murrays, Andi Jacksons, the Bergen Reilly, Rebekah Allick. Like, we know that core group. I think the biggest unknown lies with Virginia Adriano. I think Ali Czech is another unknown, not in terms of their talent, but in terms of where they fit in
how they
and
assimilate with the team.
Like, I don't know how DBK is going to put together a starting lineup.
Sure.
To be honest, like, there's so much talent on this roster. Like, you think about Ryan Hunter, who made a splash in the spring match against Kansas. Where does Skylar Pierce fit in on the outside? Because we didn't get to see her last year after she redshirted, but we know that she is such a talent too. Like, there's so many great pieces, and another unknown being the libero position. Is it going to be Lainey Choboy? Is it going to be Olivia Malk? I think those are the biggest unknowns, to where, like, I'm not even worried about DBK being the head coach. Not to say there would be any worry, but, like, I think the biggest unknown lies with that starting lineup and who is going to end up stepping up for this team. Like, I think that'll be something that changes throughout the season. I think it'll be the thing that we'll watch the most is, like, who's in the starting lineup today? Like, who's best serving this team?
Because it probably is not a situation where she's just going to set that thing and that's going to be it for the rest of the year. Like, I imagine there's going to be a lot of, like, machinations to figure out who plays best together 100%. And who's playing best at that time.
And what's interesting is that she told John Cook, and Cook mentioned this on the Big Ten broadcast he was on. He's like, well, Dani, how are you going to decide who's a libero? Like, he can ask those types of questions because he's John Cook. And she's like, I think that all, 4 of our options are very similar in terms of their numbers at practice, in terms of their ceiling and what they can be for this team. She said what's going to decide it is what the team needs personality-wise out there. And maybe that's different on a different day or a different stage of the season or conference versus
just like temperament.
non-conference. Yeah, of, like, what the team needs. And, like, Lainey Choboy is very fiery spirit. Olivia Malk is complete opposite, very calm, cool, collected. But, teams need different things. And that'll also depend on who's hitting at the pins, who's the setter. Could we see Campbell Flynn take over that spot at some point in the season from Bergen Reilly? I don't know if that happens because Bergen Reilly is incredible and should be another All-American season for her this year. But, like,
you just never know.
You just never know throughout the year. Is Taylor Landfair going to improve and take over and solidify a starting spot because she had gone back and forth with Krause last year? Like, there's so many unknowns in the roster and the lineup that I think that'll be the biggest challenge for DBK. But, like, I think, like, you also have the same coaching staff. That never happens either.
Yeah.
Like, all the assistant coaches staying. Besides, I guess, Jordan Larson leaving, but, like, they had, whoever they needed to stay with Jalen and Kelly.
Yeah,
like,
Reyes was a big one.
And Lindsay with their director of ops. But, like, to see that staff stay and all the players stay, like, that says a lot.
How much of it do you think has to do with the way Coach Cook handled this? Like, it sounds like, especially with Harper Murray, that he was part of, like, talking her through this transition process. Like, how much of it do you think has to do with just the way he communicated with the players and the assistant coaches to be like, hey, this is what I want,
Yeah.
and I want you to stay and be a part of it.
Well, it's funny because Cook is like low-key an evil genius. for the time that he left his team in the most optimal spot.
Yeah. He gave DBK a really good shot to like,
win a national
start off
championship.
really well. Yeah.
To win a national championship. This team this year, it is not a hot take to say they could win a natty.
Absolutely
at all.
not. Yeah.
Like
they could have won it last year. Like,
yeah, that is the most like normal take probably of this volleyball season, that Nebraska can win a national championship. But he knew he was leaving at the prime of Harper Murray, Andi Jackson, Bergen Reilly, that recruiting class, and the tail end of Rebekah Allick. Like he knew when he was. Like he knew the primes of those players would be this season. Obviously, next season too. We got him for 2 more years, but I don't know. Like he left DBK in such an optimal position that I think he gave the players no choice but to stay.
Yeah.
Almost. Like I know the players, love Nebraska and want to stay, but like I never know what happens behind closed doors. Like they say what they say in the press conferences, and to me personally, but I never know, right? Like you never truly know everyone's feelings, but from what I see, like. The players are bought in, they love it, and like, why would they leave when they know what they have left?
It's kind of funny because you're the first person to like say that out loud to me. I'm sure people have thought it or whatever, and maybe somebody else has said it, but I kind of just imagine the amount of humility it takes from John Cook to sit here and be like, oh no, I want to coach this team to a national championship. Yeah. Let me get one more, and then DBK can come in or whoever, right? Like that's you say evil genius, but also there's a huge amount of like pride swallowing that has to happen there to not be like, oh, I'm the best one to take this team forward into another national championship for the program or whatever his thought process is. Like I hadn't really thought about it from the aspect of, oh, he's giving up, even though I knew how good this team can be, right, and how good they were last year, obviously. But, like, it never really put it in terms of, oh, he actively chose to give up a chance, a really good chance to win a national championship to set someone else up for success. And, like, that's kind of crazy.
No, that is probably the biggest sacrifice you could give up as a head coach.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that this team can very well win 2 national championships.
And he thinks he could do it.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Like, he knows this team is built for that. He told me in our interview, I believe Dani Busboom Kelly can win a national championship. He didn't specify if it was this year, next year, whatever, but, like, to me, that alludes to pretty damn soon.
It's not a big stretch.
Yeah, it's not a long stretch
Yeah.
thing. It's like, he knows the talent that he left for DBK, and he left everything in place for her, and obviously he did. That's why I said evil genius, because like he knows what he's doing. Like a lot of coaches leave at the lowest points of the program, or they take another job and go off to coach a different team and rebuild a different program, wherever it may be. Like there's no rebuilding to do at Nebraska. There is just building to do.
Yeah, you just take over the car while just driving 100 miles an hour. Basically.
Like you're flying. You're continuing to fly that fighter jet plane, right? You're just
refueling midair and getting out.
Yeah, like that's what is at the fingertips of DBK. But not to say it doesn't take work, because like we sit back as media members and see all of the success, and like I relate Nebraska volleyball a lot to what UConn women's basketball is, and like you expect that team to be so good every year. But I remember like in one of the interviews I did with I believe it was Ice Brady on the UConn women's basketball team, I'm watching Gino in these huddles, and you guys are up by 60 points, and he's screaming at you.
Yeah, he's coaching his brains out.
What in the world is he saying to you? And she's like, he just expects that day in and day out, and we're used to it. Like, the standard is the standard. Doesn't matter if we're up 2 points. Doesn't matter if we're up 60. And that's the same thing at Nebraska. It's like the gas is always on. Like, you are always striving to be better. And, I mean, UConn obviously has done what they've done, but I feel like John Cook could almost relate a lot to Gino Auriemma in the gap that they had in between national championships, because I think their last one might have been 2017, 2018.
Yeah,
like it had been
7-8 years, I think.
It had been a little bit, and Gino, I remember him saying this, like, I was wondering, like, hey, can I do this again? Can we do this again?
As like the landscapes change and people get more universities are investing in women's basketball.
And like the gap is less and less every year. And I mean, volleyball, like, we haven't seen this much parity in the sport ever. Yeah. Right? Like, there's so many good teams. I mean, look at the Big Ten. Like, you can put any of those teams in the Final Four this year for sure.
You get through the Big Ten, and it's almost like winning a national championship. I mean, it's kind of, DB and I talked about this with wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, the Big Ten tournament is harder than the national tournament. Like, you're going through tougher
100%.
competition. And
all the way through,
Yeah, it's arguably the same case in the Big Ten, where you just have just a gauntlet of teams to get through.
But you do expect so much from Nebraska volleyball, and again, like we say here and say, like, I mean, I just said they can win national championship this year, but like you still have to put in the work, and your star players still have to show up and do what they do and continue to get better and improve. And like we see the expectations, and it's easy for us to say that, but like you got to think about, them going through the 5 a.m. workouts and everything to, hopefully get to that point. And I remember even like sitting down talking to John, and I asked him about the expectations at Nebraska and how you handle that pressure, how you look at pressure. And he said, well, it's almost like if you don't win a national championship, it's a failure.
Yeah.
And in a lot of programs, that ain't a failure.
No, making the Final Four is it.
The
like, pinnacle.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just a different level of pressure on Nebraska volleyball, but it's also, what makes it so amazing at Nebraska too. And it's why people want to play here. And it's why, you get the best recruits here, because that is the expectation. And the gold standard is to, fly through your non-conference schedule, win the Big Ten, and win a natty. Like, easy as that, right?
I think one of the things that we underestimate sometimes, and I'm a big tennis fan, so I think about it a lot of times in terms of tennis. You've got these handful of guys. 10 years ago it was Federer and Nadal and Djokovic, and like that was always those three. And if one of those three didn't win each major, it was this huge shock, right? But for those guys, like, you still have to go through the first round matches, and you have to go through all the I mean, there's months in between each major, right? You still have to perform at those to get the seeding you want to be in the major and be in a position to win that major. And like, I think all the time about these teams where it is championship or bust, basically, that, okay, game one kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like starting the season, you're like, man, we got 3 months before we even get a chance to achieve our goal. Right. And so I think I'm really interested in the temperament of this team and how it's going to look, because we saw over the last couple of years, we call it the kinder, gentler John Cook, right? He kind of softened a little bit. It seemed like he was responding to what his team needed from him in that moment and with those specific players. I'll be really interested to see what the dynamic looks like where, all right, these players aren't young anymore. They're not freshmen and sophomores anymore. They're juniors and seniors. It's time to go. Like, it really is national title or bust.
Yeah.
And what does that look like when you still have this? I mean, you mentioned the 5 a.m. workouts. That's before you even get to the game one that kind of sucks, right?
That's like right now for them.
Games 1 through 30 or whatever, where you're like, all right, well, we just, it can't just be we have to get through this, right? Because if you do that, then you'll stumble a lot along the way. We'll talk about Creighton basketball here in a minute, but the year that they went to the Elite Eight and they start out the gate 6-6, and you're like, what's happening right now? This team is better than that. And I think there is a little bit of that, we kind of have to get through this so that we can break through. And I'm fascinated by what the dynamic of this team's going to look like throughout the course of the regular season as they go on this march towards what is really a championship or bust season. Yeah,
I think it'll be a sense of urgency, I think would be a good way to put it, because
it can go either way, though, right?
Yeah. Harper Murray wants to go out with a national championship. I mean, she said it. Rebekah Allick was almost inconsolable. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah. After losing last year to Penn State. And she was picked up immediately by Andi Jackson, who put her arm around her. And Andi knows she's got 2 more years. Yeah. Rebekah's 1 more year. So I think sense of urgency is a good way to put it in terms of what they want to accomplish in these next 2 years. Is it national championship or bust? I don't know. I think in their eyes it probably is.
I'll say it's probably how they view it.
That's how they view it. Yeah.
I would guess that's how a lot of fans view it,
and I think that's probably, I mean, it feels like this should be the year. I mean, if you look at the past 4 seasons, Nebraska has either lost in the championship or lost in the semifinal round the past 4 years. 2017 was last year they won it. That was in Kansas City. This year, it's back in Kansas City. I would love to see the turnout of Nebraska fans in
gosh.
Kansas City. It's
Yeah.
going to be ridiculous.
I mean, it's
Good luck getting a ticket if you aren't.
it was ridiculous in
wearing
Louisville
red.
last year, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, being 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's going to be, it feels like the year for them to do it, for sure.